Good evening and welcome to the July 15, 2013 Valley View School Board meeting. Mr. Venegas, would you please rise and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Will do, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Board affirmation statement. Let's see, last meeting it was Miss Hanson. So we'll go down the other end. Mr. Venegas.
Sure. Our mission is to ensure that all students are prepared for college and a successful life, academically, socially, and emotionally, as well as equipped with the necessary tools to have options and make decisions about their long-term goals. This will be accomplished by believing in and working towards all students learning through rigorous curricula and meaningful, effective instruction, consequently demonstrating mastery of high-quality assessments with all stakeholders being held accountable throughout the process.
Thank you. Dr. Mitchum, agenda.
Mr. President, I would like to ask the board to approve approve the agenda as presented.
Kind of off your game with this summertime thing, aren't you?
Just a little bit.
Gotcha. Motion to approve agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes. Treasurer's report, Mr. Grisafi.
Yes, Treasurer's Action Report 5.1 contains the typical variety of financial reports, balance sheets, and summary of revenue and expenditures for the year, along with the interim obligation payments for June 2013 totaling $3,682,465.15 for action.
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes.
As
Next.
is typical at this time of year, we have two bill lists for your consideration this evening. 5.2 is the schedule of bills for June 30th, the end of the fiscal year, totaling $2,305,720.91 for your action.
Motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion second. Is there any discussion on paying the bills? If not, a roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes.
5.3 is the schedule of bills for July 2013, totaling $4,631,498.97 for your action.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Again, since we're spending money, roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes.
5.
Information reports.
Yes, 5.4 is a summary of investments for June 30th, 2013. 5.5 are the property taxes received for the same time frame. 5.6 is a state funding update. I'll circle back to that in a second. And 5.1 are the all schools trust account activity. You'll notice on the state funding update that there's a notation there that our fifth or outstanding mandated categorical payments have been received. So the state is current in its payments to school districts. This is about a $4 million payment that we received just after the holiday, July 4th, and so we're happy to receive that money, and hopefully the state can stay current in the new fiscal year.
I don't want to go to her head, but Representative Manley is in the audience. Thank you for getting our money to us. I know the state's got a lot of issues with funding, and I know that there's a large one-time payment of sorts into the revenue coffers that we might not see next year. Well, we won't see it at that level, that's for sure. But we'll have you up and talk a little bit later about some other stuff. But if unless anybody's got any questions. Any questions on any of the information reports? Hearing none, moving down the agenda. Consent agenda items. Dr. Mitchum.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask the board to approve consent agenda items 6-1 through 6-6, 6-1 board meeting minutes, June 10th, 2013, 6-2 executive session meeting minutes, June 10, 2013, 6-3 board meeting minutes, June 24th, 2013, 6-4 executive session meeting minutes, June 24th, 2013, student activity contract, BJ Warden Scholastic Book Fairs is 6-5, and 6-6 is treasurers, and working cash bond renewal for school years 2013-14.
Any discussions on the consent? Hearing none, seeing none, a motion would be in order to pass it.
So moved. Second.
Motion is seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas,
Yes.
Member Campbell,
Yes.
Member Sikora,
Yes.
Member Felice,
Yes.
Secretary Hansen,
Yes.
Vice President Gugis,
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes. Student and staff recognition. Come on down.
I'd like to introduce Tammy Kahn, Director of Career and Technical Education, who will present a certificate to the Bolingbrook High School baton twirling champion.
Go ahead. I've seen her perform multiple times.
I don't know that you've seen her. You've seen Nicola.
Oh,
I think you've seen Nicola. Good evening, President Quigley, board members, senior leadership, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to introduce Mary Kate Ramsey. Mary Kate will be a senior at Bolingbrook High School this coming fall. The reason why I get to introduce her is because she is my twirling student. I've been coaching her for 3 years, and Mary Kate has worked very hard this year and has earned some prestigious titles. She is the USTA, United States Twirling Association, State 1 baton, 2 baton, 3 baton, and dance twirl champion. She also won the National Baton Twirling Association's regional, which is a 3-state title. Which states? It's Illinois, Missouri, and Indiana, I believe, are the 3 states that compete in our region. And she won the 2 baton, and she also won what's considered would be kind of equal to the gymnastic all-around. And so I'm very, very proud of Mary Kate this year. She also qualified for the national competition, but she chose to go with her church group on a mission trip to New Jersey to help the people in New Jersey this summer instead. And she plans to go to college and major in special ed and physical education. Mary Kate.
don't let her get away. Wait, whoa, stop. I got a question. Actually, get up by the microphone. 2 questions. One, how many hours do you practice a week, out of curiosity? This is not a sport that a lot of people see, so they kind of want to know this stuff.
It depends on the week. I try to go to the gym every day, like 2 hours a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so this is an Olympic sport as well, is it not?
No.
It's not an Olympic sport? I thought it was.
We're in the Junior Olympics.
Junior Olympics, okay. Do I have any other questions? Nope, that's it.
Okay.
You can get a college scholarship for this, though, can you not?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Purdue and that whole.
Yep.
Moving down the agenda, liaison reports, any and all, please. Crystal? You got nothing? You just want to say that they met?
Yeah, we just met with the gifted program and moving forward with some small groups that are meeting on different subject matters, and I think it's going very well. So
What about the contract negotiations?
we also met this week with contract negotiations with the the office personnel. Almost
Office
said
personnel
classified,
contract,
yeah,
okay.
office personnel, and that's moving along, and we meet again this week as well.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none. Any audience participation? Anybody who wishes to address the audience this evening? No, I got a special spot for you, Representative Manley. Please state your name and where you're from. Step forward.
Sinatra Strong, Bolingbrook resident. I'd like to say good evening to board members and superintendent. My question is concerning, of course, received a letter in the mail concerning the fees. Of course, my daughter, she's a Bolingbrook High School student, so I became a little bit concerned about the fees as far as the breakdown of the fees. Of course, my daughter is at the age where she can take advantage of the driver's education program, which I'm not too excited about that. I'm not ready for her to drive. But my question about that, with the fee attached to that, when you guys can put me up to speed and educate me, is that driver's education, is that outsourced or is it actually conducted through Valley View?
That's conducted through Valley View.
Valley View?
Yes.
Is there a way if we as parents can opt out our students to not participate in driver's education and not be responsible for the fee? Is that something, is that an option?
Yes, that is an option.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Okay, good, okay. Also with the the book fee, what does that entail as far as the book fee? What is the book fee in general? Anyone can, general question.
The book fee is designed primarily as similar to an insurance policy for our books for the wear and tear and potential replacement of those books.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You know that. When it comes down to the registration fee, so I'm kind of putting on my homeowner's hat. What is that? What's the attachment to registration fee? Why does that exist? The registration fee. Anyone can.
Sure. Registration fee covers exactly what it denotes, registration for the intake of all of our 17,000 students. It services our technology. It services all of our paperwork, all of our labor, anything and everything having to do with the intake of registration annually at all of our sites. All of those fees that are listed on that letter are considered user fees, and again are subject to payment by those that have students in our school system.
Okay. I guess my heart is going out to those parents that have more than one child in the system. It comes out to a significant amount of money. Is there a way that when these letters are sent out, if they can be more detailed on what it is, like more of a breakdown in each category? I think that would help a lot of us as parents.
Certainly we can.
Yeah.
We are somewhat limited by the system that we use that generates those letters. The back-to-school book does have a lot more detailed information on everything having to do with registration.
Okay.
So I don't know if you had a chance to cross-reference that, but
No, I didn't.
You would find a lot more of the detail I think that you would be looking for.
Okay. Is there anything in place that can help offset registration fees? Is there anything that we can do as a district to offset registration fees?
There are waivers available for families that qualify for free and reduced meal benefits. There's also deferred payment plans for families to make payments over time, similar to what you would do with any bill.
Yeah. Not in that aspect, but just the overall cost. Is there a way that can be some kind of way decreased? Has this increased from last year?
Some of the fees have increased over time. I think the board approved a 2-year schedule last time we brought it here. Again, we've done surveys of surrounding districts of our fees, and we stack up very favorably in terms of the dollar figure that the fees represent. We do not feel that what we charge for driver's ed, for instance, certainly is well within reason as compared to private driver's ed lessons. And so, again, we're very cognizant of the impact of the fees on our families. At the same time, they do generate approximately $2 million all in. And if those fees are reduced by any percentage, something would have to be reduced in our overall budget. So, again, it's a balancing act, continues to be a balancing act in this financial environment we find ourselves in.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
Welcome. Please state your name and address, whatever.
Good evening. My name is Norman Brown. I'm a resident of Bolingbrook. And I guess my question, kind of following along with the last speaker with regards to fees. Like most people of the school district, I received my tax bill early or late part of April. And to my surprise, I see there's a huge increase in my property taxes with regards to the school district. And in my case, it's an increase of about $1,500. And with all the fees, what justifies such an increase?
Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, your last name.
Brown, B-R-O-W-N.
Mr. Brown, without looking at your property tax bill,
Yeah, I have it right here in front of me.
Did your did the assessor say that your home was worth significantly more than the year prior?
Yes, but I don't think that has anything, or at least it should not have anything to do with it.
That has a lot
I mean,
to do
well,
with.
what justifies the increase? I mean, is there some
It's a rate,
unexpected
so if the
expenditures?
assessor says your home is worth more, then you're going to see a pretty significant increase across the board.
Well, I'm in the process of dealing with that right now, but an increase of that size, I don't know how do you justify that.
And if the assessor lowers your value, you will see your school district portion reduce the most dramatically, as it's the largest portion of your tax bill.
Well,
When you say a $1,500 increase, there has to be probably a pretty significant increase
Right.
in what the assessor said your home value was. Do you
Right.
have those? Would you be willing to share that with us?
I'm more than happy to share it. I have it right here with me, just for that purpose. But still, all in all, just seems to be the trend. Each year, at least in my case, and it's probably true with some others, that there's an increase, and I'm just looking for justification.
We have, over the years, the last 2 or 3 years in particular, tried to flatten out the property tax increases, or in some people's cases, they've gone down for a couple of years, and they've come back up a few years. It just depends where you're on a 3-year blended cycle. As you know, the property taxes are assessed in 3-year cycles. Mine went down a couple of years ago, and it went back up a little bit this year. But we've tried as a board, and we've tried, and Gary can attest to this, we've tried to compress it as best we can. But a significant increase, and there was probably some increases in some of the other, your $1,500 increase wasn't just for the school district.
Just for the school district.
Okay.
My total bill, property tax bill, increased by about $2,100.
Okay.
And I've been in communication with my neighbors, and of course, my neighbors are upset. They're not here tonight, but
Sure.
I suspect, like most people, you kind of take it as it comes and you deal with it, and hopefully you're able to pay it. Being that I'm now retired, I'm on fixed income, so I'm paying now more in property taxes than my mortgage.
Yeah,
There's something wrong with this picture.
You know, again, sir, you live in DuPage Township, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You live in DuPage Township?
Yes.
All right, so I know in Lockport Township, the assessor in Lockport Township, I think, applied was it a 6% decrease across the board evenly to all homeowners? So all homeowners saw a very similar change. In DuPage Township, Mr. Randall, the assessor, used a different formula. And if your tax bill went up that much, there has to be a pretty significant increase in the value of your home. That's not driven by the percentage increase of our tax rate. It's driven primarily to be $1,500 more
Right.
by the increase in the value of your home. Now, we don't set that trigger, but that trigger is going to be the key driver here for you that's going to drive a $1,500 increase, which I would agree is really, really large.
Right.
Have you
But-
spoken to Mr. Randall?
Well, the school district makes up about 75% of the tax bill, if not a little more or less. Of course, I would like to see that be a lot less, but that all depends on you as the board and how you come up with your budget and where you are able to be more efficient or make cuts or whatever you need to do. Like I said, I'm not the only one in this position. In fact, some people in my area are threatening to move because it's gotten to the point where it's too expensive and they're being priced out. And the school district is only one part of that problem.
We have made, since I've been on this board, we have made tens of millions of dollars in budget reductions while trying to maintain a standard of classroom size and what have you, programs and all that kind of thing, without it ultimately affecting the students. Our funding levels from the state of Illinois are down, Gary, 40%?
The general state aid, we've lost probably close to $10 million over the last 3 years. Transportation is upwards of $7 million. So just those two major funding areas have really taken a toll on us. The other thing I wanted to add is our levy increased by 3.8%.
Right.
So again, that's all I can share because that's all the board approved. It sounds like your bill went up quite a bit more than that. The
Right.
easy analogy is if you and your neighbor were the only two taxpayers in the community, and his bill went down by $100, you would make up that difference. And if you take that amongst the 10,000 parcels that make up our school district, the give and take of exemptions, property tax appeals, and so forth, cause that yin and yang, if you will. And you generally don't see an increase like you experienced year over year. It's hard to take even in 1 year, I understand that. As President Quigley mentioned, it's a continual balancing act for us to try to make ends meet with the way we're funded. Unfortunately, throughout the state of Illinois, we are solely reliant on property taxes,
Right.
overly reliant, I should say. And absent that, the user fees make up such a small slice. I mean, we're a $230 million operation. User fees make up $2 million. And so, we can cut a little bit here, a little bit there, but we're just struggling to make ends meet like everybody else is, just on a bigger scale.
Well, I also have one child in high school, so it's a double whammy for me. Not only am I paying fees on one end, but on the other end, I'm paying, of course, the cost and property taxes.
But user fees are meant to say, let's not have you pay for driver's ed if you don't have a child in driver's ed.
Right.
To offset some of that cost. Now, then if you find and it's not 100%, but it is definitely meant to offset that. So people that participate in activities that have a user fee attached to it are helping to pay for that and take that burden off of those who don't. So we went up 3.83%. Sounds like your tax bill went up significantly more than that. That difference is going to be generated by the increase in the value that the assessor said your home is worth. I'm in the same position that you are, and actually, my tax bill is higher than my principal and interest. I'm in that same position, but we can't control what they assess your house at. 3.83% is not. I wish we were lower, but I think that was responsible use of the taxpayers' money to make our budget go up 3.83% in the environment that we're in, with the fact we only went up that much with all the money that we lost in state funding, while still keeping programs, still keeping extracurricular activities that other districts have had to cut, still having a really safe busing program, even though the state has cut millions of dollars from the busing, our transportation budget, millions of dollars from our special education budget. Those things have really made us have to look hard at what we do with the money. And I think the advantage that you have as board members is we all live here and pay the same property taxes that you pay. We don't live somewhere far. I live in Romeoville and pay property taxes, and I'm in the same boat that you are. So we'll continue to look at that. If there's things you see that we could look at in particular,
Right.
Please let us know.
Also, I don't know if you have to leave or not, but if you could stick around, because I'd like to talk to you and go over your bill a little bit.
More than happy to.
Have you appealed your property tax
No.
to the assessor's office? I mean,
Yes, I've been in touch with the assessor's office.
have you appealed it?
No, but I plan to,
Okay. Well, you would do that through them, not us.
along
but-
with several neighbors.
Yeah, I would, because that's certainly within your right, and I'd like to take a look at your bill just to see what's
More than
what.
happy.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you for your time.
We shouldn't be here too terribly long, so.
Okay.
Next, State Representative Natalie Manley has joined us this evening for the public participation. Please state your name and where you're from, for the record.
I am State Representative Natalie Manley. I live in Joliet, but in the 98th District with many of you. Thank you, President Quigley and members of the board, for letting me speak here tonight. I hate following speakers that hate the state, but that seems to be everywhere I go nowadays. Thank God you're current, because when you started talking about the funding, I started to sink down in my chair, so we're current, at least at this point.
Should have been here 3 months ago.
Yeah. I've been around the district. I've stood in front of many boards like this, and I'm always glad when the reports are favorable. A couple of reasons I'm here tonight, and then to answer any questions you have. I want to spotlight that I'm having an Education Advisory Committee meeting Monday, July 22nd from 6 to 7, a week from today. Our topics will include legislative updates and suggestions, and among other items, the fiscal 2013 and 14 funding and those concerns. Also, I always forget to introduce him. Andrew Kretschmar is in the audience. He is he coordinates all my community outreach, and so in the event, what I'm trying to do is sit down with all board members at all different levels and talk one-on-one about some of the ideas you have, some of the concerns, and Andrew is the one you'll talk to. In fact, we've been in touch with Principal Tony Valenza over at Jamie McGee. I toured their school, and we are going to be partnering with him with an internet safety course, and so we're looking forward to doing that with him. Lastly, I just want you to know that my goal is to be as accessible as possible. There's a lot of problems. School districts are really struggling, and the taxpayers are struggling, and so this requires a lot of attention, a lot of conversation, and some action finally. So I'm looking forward to being part of that. And I'll answer any questions you have, if I can.
Before we get started, I want you guys to understand that Representative Manley is also a CPA, so she knows numbers. She has been down in Springfield now for
In my many 6 months of experience,
6 months? I was going to say 8 months, 6 months. In my day job, I have occasion to be down in Springfield quite a bit, and she also represents me where I live, but she is extremely accessible down there, up here. I appreciate you coming tonight, but also your efforts in Springfield. When we talked about the charter schools, she was a part of that conversation along with Senator Bertino Tarrant, and I appreciate your efforts on that as well. But in the bigger picture thing, we can talk at your forum, but it's all about money. Less regulation and more money. And I have said many, many times we don't feel that the state pays their fair share. Constitutionally, it looks like the state is supposed to pay more than 50% of what education costs are. We're not even near that. Our foundation level, Gary, is $1,100.
When you break it down on a per pupil basis, it's like $1,167, right? $1,167.
So almost $1,200, but $1,100. Lesser districts, downstate districts, are receiving $6,000 plus per student. When I first got on this board, I was of the belief that every district got $6,000 or back then it was $5,800 per student. And I thought, how can you not do that with as many students as we have? Well, then the reality is we don't get that because we're I don't want to call us a wealthy district because we're certainly not, but we're a better off district than some districts. And that's the slap in the face that because we are struggling to do what we do, and we see other districts to get the upper level foundation money. I one time made a comment to Mr. Gusafi. I said, what if we got like $2,000 per student? He said, then we'd be fine. If we just doubled what we got. But we're so far down that list, or not the list, but the amount of money that we receive compared to other districts. And then we see reports coming out of COGFA that show that the city of Chicago gets 50% of the money and only has a third of the students statewide. And we sit out here in the suburbs and we want to know about how this is fair to us and how is it as a district and as a taxpayer, not just locally but statewide, why am I now funding when we're being asked to take on more and more pension obligations under certain proposals that are out there? those are the things that I would be most interested in. And I don't expect an answer that's 100% tonight, but those are the things that I'm concerned about as board president and as a local taxpayer as well, that we have these issues that are affecting us financially. And for 2.5 years, I've ridden the fact that the state's owed us up to almost $9 million at certain points. It was 4.5. I think we never did collect the $4 million, did we, from 2 years ago? Did that just get written off?
We got it.
Or we finally got that?
That's it. That's what we
Okay, so
talked about
that
this
last
evening, yeah.
payment was finally made. But for us to be owed $4, $5, $6 million, that's $4, $5, $6 million that we're losing in investments, even though it's a small percentage. Everything adds up. And if you, at some point, when your director of finance comes to you and says, we're just going to have to write this off the books, and you say, how do we write off $5 million? And our rainy day fund is racing for the basement, as it were. And those are the types of things that, take the message back. We've had enough. That you cannot continue to just keep heaping things on us. And I get it. I mean, as much as anybody, I understand what goes on down there, and I understand the state's budget woes and everything else. But by and large, the people in this room didn't create that problem.
So, Representative, before you answer, I would just add on, and what that looks like for us is when the state shifts the burden, and I really appreciate your service. You've only been there 6 months, and just your outreach alone. I've responded to Andrew. I was kind of glad for the inclement weather because I responded to Andrew like we had a school board meeting that night, and I wasn't going to be able to attend, and so I'm glad that next Monday, and we do have some information that we've prepared to present to you at that meeting. But tonight, what we see is an example of these past couple years before you've went to Springfield, this shift in the cost from the state to local taxpayers like this gentleman right here. So that's the embodiment of what happens, is that burden's being shifted from the state to our local taxpayers, and then they're going, how does this make sense? I can't afford to live here. And those are our struggles, along with all the things that President Quigley said, but he really is kind of the embodiment of those issues.
A couple of things run through my mind while you're talking to me. One is when I made the commitment to do this job, I thought being a CPA would be really an asset going down there. Well, and I knew the numbers were going to be bad, but I had no idea how bad it was going to be. It's bad. We talk about how important education is, and yet we don't put our money where our mouth is. And then and the other hand is, we have the 900-pound gorilla in the room is the pension debacle. And none of us caused that problem, right? There's not a person in here that was responsible for that problem. But I have to fix it for all our sakes. So we have some immense issues, and I'm dedicated to working hard. It's not fun having, I hear stories in Springfield 20 years ago, everybody was having a great time and it was fun. I'm going to tell you, it's not fun to listen to people struggle and to wonder how they're going to pay their property taxes and how they're going to put their kids through school, and how you who care about what goes on here are going to keep class sizes so that the kids can learn. I mean, it's about them at the end of the day. And that's my frustration. So I get there and I see these numbers and I'm exasperated. So I'm dedicated to working with you. Everybody says, I'm sorry I sent you that strong email. Send them, because I bring those with me to Springfield. This is my ammunition when I'm down there to tell them this is what the people think. And that's what we have to do. But keep working together. The frustration's okay because it's real. So.
Just thank you so much for coming. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask for, you mentioned that you're having this, a meeting on the 22nd.
Yes.
But you didn't mention the location.
Yes, thank you. Larry Randa brought me that note. Say, tell everybody where it is.
Yes.
It does help. I'm going to give you my card, but it will be held at 2701 Black Road, which is the southernmost border of the district, but not very far from here. And that's my office, my district office. So everybody is welcome.
Representative Manning, I really want to thank you for coming. In my 4 years on the board, we haven't had a elected representative in state government come before the board, particularly, to address an issue so difficult. Typically this is the kind of time we see people ducking and diving. So I really appreciate that you're here saying, hey, I know there's a problem, I'm here to fix it. That has not always been the case. So if this is how you operate in Springfield, hey, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And again, she's been extremely helpful in Springfield, not just on educational stuff, but don't leave yet, so you can still put the camera on you. Representative Manley has also been a very good person to bounce off things that affect our municipalities as well, and I want to thank you for that.
Very
I'm
welcome.
sure if there were other elected officials here, they would say the same things, but she's looking out for our best interests, and I'm sure you probably had more of an eye-opener than you ever wanted in the last 6 months. So, but keep up the good work, and thanks for your assistance.
Thank you. Thank you.
If there's no one else, moving down the agenda, Superintendent's Action Report.
No report this evening.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Kinder's not with us this evening,
No
so I'm sure
report.
she doesn't have a report. Mr. Gazafi.
No report.
Ms. Hawks.
Yes, I have 3 reports this evening. Action Report 13.1, Consolidated Action Report. I will be recommending your approval this evening. For certified personnel, we are removing 1 teacher from R.C. Hill Elementary School, so we're seeking your approval on 63 separate items. For classified personnel, seeking your approval on 30. Administrative classified personnel on 5 items, and administrative certified personnel on 7 items.
So move.
Motion and seconded.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes.
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Next.
Second action report this evening is 13.2. We request that the board waive the first reading and recommend your approval of the proposed job descriptions due to the reorganization of our Educational Services Department. The 3 job descriptions included here are Assistant Super for Educational Services Pre-K-12, Executive Director for Educational Services Pre-K-12, Pre-K-5, and Executive Director for Educational Services 6-12.
Motion?
So moved.
Second? Second by Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Any discussion?
Are we going to introduce some of those new people in administration? They're out in the audience. I see them.
Anybody want to be introduced? Come on down. Sharon, go ahead. We'll vote first and then have them come down. Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
I was wondering
Yes.
that.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes?
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Ms. Hawks, please have them come on down.
Now it's official.
Okay. This evening, in the action report that was just approved by the board, we are approving the recommendation to hire for Rachel Mogi, Director of 612 Literacy and Social Studies.
You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
Miss Amy Paris, she's the Director of Pre-K-5 Literacy and Social Studies. Teresa Polson, Assistant Principal at Jane Addams Middle School. Mrs. Judy Zito Nash is the new Director of Professional Development, and she was unable to make it tonight due to previous conflicts with her schedule. And then last but not least, Andrea Ellickson, Student Services Administrator, and I don't see her here this evening either.
I'm a little, I see Principal Pascavage in the audience. I'm sorry that you guys couldn't make a speech like his, but appreciate it. Thanks for attending. Did any of you bring your mothers that you'd like to introduce?
Yes.
There, Rachel brought her mom. Come on, bring her up here. Mom doesn't want to come up. Sorry, Jay, had to do it. That it?
No, I have one more.
You got one more.
Action Report 13.3. This evening, it's resolution number 1464. We're seeking your approval authorizing the extension of the employment contract for James A. Mitchum Jr.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Sikora?
Yes.
Member Felice?
Yes.
Secretary Hansen?
Yes?
Vice President Gugis?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Real brief, the contract, I think we thought, the board thinks, continuity is important in this district, and the board a few years ago decided that we were not going in the direction that we thought we should be going, and the board at that time decided that we needed to make some changes. Those changes have been made. Dr. Mitchum was a part of that change for the academic improvement of our school district. We think we're going in the right direction, and we also think that at the going into this contract extension is a good idea for the purposes of continuity in the district. His health insurance is now going to be the same health insurance that everyone else in the district has. His raise was the equivalent of everybody else's in the district. Jim's been I don't know, how long have you been in this district?
Since 1980.
Since 1980, in some capacity or another. He's part of the community. He's lived here. You've lived here pretty much that whole time too. So I'm glad we got this done. The continuity is probably more important than anything for the purposes of continuing the path that we've chosen, and we expect. And I said this 2 or 3 years ago when he agreed to take the job, or we hired him in the first place. If the results aren't there, the first thing out of his mouth was, "I can find another job." He believes in what he's doing. We believe in what he's trying to do. We know a lot of you sitting out there believe in it, and we hope that where the rubber meets the road, the educators and the students will benefit from it as well. And I want to thank my fellow board members and for their confidences. And Jim, I think you should thank them for their confidences, but as well as moving this district forward academically is where we need to be. And I believe that where we're going is where we're going to get. And that said, anybody else have any comments?
I'll just add that I think that Dr. Mitchum's work so far in transforming our district in such a short period of time. I thought when I got on the school board that we were like a cruise ship, and that's hard to turn. We are more like a glacier. And Dr. Mitchum has moved us in a direction where, one, we put students first. 2, we use data and research and proven strategies to improve student performance. And that has been really impressive to me. This contract is him sacrificing healthcare benefits to match the teacher's contract. He had another year of his contract left. He did not need to do that. But he felt that was the right thing, and we agreed. Dr. Mitchum, I personally think that let this be a clear statement to the entire district that a 4-year contract extension means that this board has voted 7-0 that we have confidence in the direction that you're taking the district and that we stand behind you.
I'd just like to sort of not necessarily jump on a bandwagon, but speaking first as a parent that has 3 kids in the district and able to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, if I could quote Clint Eastwood, the direction that this board has gone in the last 2.5 months. I've had the opportunity to tour and visit with teachers and administration of 15 of our schools, and that's no easy task, but the philosophy is one. And for those that weren't here, what was it, a month ago when Assistant Superintendent Kinder put together that report along with several of her team that's here today, the proof's in the pudding. And if you want those numbers, make the phone call, because those numbers are a reflection of a lot of hard work, but it starts at the top. And as a parent, I think the right person is there. And as a member of a board, I think it's definitely the right thing to do, because it's the right thing for the kids. And that's it. It's the right thing for the kids. So thank you, Dr. Mitchum.
I'd like to thank the board for their vote of confidence. I really appreciate that. But more than even thanking the board, I've always said that the higher up the food chain you go, the more you're called upon to serve. and my responsibility is to serve the stakeholders in this district, primarily the teachers. And absent their hard work in the classrooms, none of those numbers that you referenced would come to fruition. It is my responsibility to establish a vision, and it's my responsibility to accept this leadership role. And it's my responsibility to invoke the capacity of people to follow this direction. I am not naive. I do understand that we are very controversial. I understand that there are staff members out there that we still need to wrap our arms around and to help in moving forward with this vision. But overall, the hard work and dedication of the teachers in the buildings, the administrators in the buildings, are what has really caused us to begin to turn this glacier, so to speak, Member Gugis, and point our district in the right direction. So a heartfelt thanks to the board for their vote of confidence, and especially a heartfelt thanks to the teachers in the classroom, because that is truly where the rubber meets the road, and that's where this is really getting done. In any way that I can support them, I'm here to do so. So thank you very much.
Moving down the agenda, let's see where. Dr. Mitchum, DUCAP Area Project Contract Agreement.
I'd like to introduce Larry Randa.
We're bringing before you tonight an information report on the renewal of a contract with the DuPage County Area Project, known as DUCAP, a very positive community partner with Valley View for quite a few years, offering significant services in both the elementary and the middle school levels. And with us tonight is Cheryl Jordan, who is the Area Project Coordinator for DUCAP, who will tell you a little bit about what DUCAP is about.
Good evening, board members and President Squigley. My name is Cheryl Jordan, and I am Area Project Supervisor for DUCAP. And DUCAP is DuPage County Area Project. And we have two main focus areas. One is community organizing, and the other is direct service. Direct service piece is the connection that we have with the Valley View School District. And two of those programs, one is called Choices. Choices is an after-school program. We have relationships with BJ Ward, Tibbet, and Irene King. Choices provides mentoring, life skills, recreation, character building, recreation activities, and parental involvement in the Choices after-school programs. The other area is our Builders Clubs. That's Kiwanis Builders Clubs, and we have relationships at AVM, Lou Kinzick, Brooks, Jane Addams, and Humphrey. With our Builders Club, we provide community service activities, and we meet every other week at their schools. And the children also learn organizational and teamwork and leadership skills in our Builders Clubs. That's primarily our focus in the district. Any questions?
Any questions? How come Jimmy didn't come tonight, too?
He had a prior engagement.
Tell him I said hi.
Thank you for your support. We were really proud of our builders programs when we did that a couple years ago at all of our middle schools. I remember DUCAP was really excited for us to be putting it at all of our middle schools, so we appreciate the good work that you guys do and the partnership that we have with you.
Thank you for having us.
Next, first reading of board policy, home and hospital instruction.
Yes, item 14.2 is the first reading of board policy 6:150, home hospital instruction. This policy has been updated based on federal and state guidelines, and it's there for your review. If you have any questions, Erica Ekstrom is here, Director of Student Services, and she can share more information if needed, but this is pretty much a standard update of the policy.
Any questions on this? If you have any specific questions after reading through this, you might want to address them to her directly. If not, we'll see this on our next agenda, correct? Everybody's nodding their head, so I assume that means yes. Moving down the agenda. Legal Services, Ms. Elliott.
No formal report.
Association reports, AFT?
No report.
Valley View Council?
No report.
Office Council? Apparently no report. Any old business before the board? No old business. Any new business before the board? Member Sikora.
Mr. Mitchen's ready for me because he has a stack of books over here for me. I have asked to kind of reopen the concept of 90-10. I have some issues with it and have always had issues with it. There's so many good things that have come out of the new view. However, I'm concerned with the fact that our children, especially at the junior high level and some at the high school level, are not mature enough to understand the concept that you need to do homework in order to understand what they're learning and to pass the test. And I think by giving us the homework only 10%, we're telling the children that it's not important to begin with, and they are able to figure out that it really doesn't affect their grade. And so therefore, we have really had a drop in homework completion over the last couple years, and it's a big concern of teachers. And I would just like to reopen it to see if we can change it from 90-10 to...
Can I?
Yes.
Do you have any data or thought processes that speak to how a different percentage would increase student performance, or is it anecdotal?
No, I gave data to Mr. Mitchum showing what the difference would be if it was 90-10 versus 85-15 versus 80-20.
Was that the form that I saw earlier today?
Correct.
All right, so that's an example.
Correct. Examples were made
Do you
with...
have data or studies that show that homework?
I've been online, and what I have come up with is one that says that 90-10 is not meant for all. That it mostly works with those children that are in the AP classes or the honors classes, because we have, I don't want to say a different mentality, but those are the children that probably understand that homework is more important, and therefore they do the homework. But we've seen a real drop in homework even in the honors classes starting at the junior high level.
Because the research that I've looked at, and I'm going to mention some of that, and then one of the concerns that I have is if we look at some other educational models that are popular here in the United States. If we take the Montessori school model, they don't use homework. They find it non-value added, repetitive use, and many people whose children have been in the Montessori model find that their kids very well prepared. Montessori kids that come to our district are very well prepared, and they use homework not at all. Recently, the Indiana University School of Education in 2012 studied the transcript data and individual class scores of 18,000 students and found that despite the fact that those students spent some, let me find it here, almost 100, the equivalent of 100 to 180 50-minute class periods doing homework, that their course grade work did not improve at all from doing that homework. In fact, more schools, including middle schools, like the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools in Tennessee, scrapped extra credit and graded homework for middle schoolers altogether.
I have no problem with scrapping extra credit.
Well, they scrapped homework in addition because they found it non-value added. The one, they actually scrapped it and just asked students to spend 30 minutes a night reading in lieu of homework, that would be even more valuable to their education than
Doesn't
homework.
teach them too much math, though.
And in particular, the study was in math and science, and saying that that the students, despite 100 to 180 extra 50-minute class periods is what that time that doing homework equivalent went to, that it did not help them in their actual course that they were in.
So you're saying that what you learn throughout the day does not need to be practiced at night or practiced ever
I'm saying
in
that
order
this-
to understand what they're learning.
I'm
It's
saying-
just like saying, if I take driver's ed, don't I need to go out there on the road and practice driving?
I'm saying that 18,000 students in this study, it did not show any benefit. And I think the other thing that happens, like with driver's ed, When you go practice at home, you go practice with someone who's skilled at it, has the time to give you to do it, can teach you the same things that you're learning in the driver's ed course, which isn't always the case with, if my child comes home with advanced algebra, I am not going to be able to help them like I could help them with driver's ed.
A lot of times all the teachers want the parents to do is not necessarily help them, but just make sure that they're actually doing the work. Ask them, do you have homework? Have you done it? Can I see it? Because you can go online and see what the homework actually is and check to see if, we're not saying to do a lot of homework. We're saying that you need to, I'm saying you need to practice what is being taught that day in order to understand
I don't think
it.
I have an issue with practice. I think the issue is what portion should homework count towards your grade is where we're talking about, right? I don't think anybody's saying that necessarily practice is a problem. The question is what portion should that practice count towards your
Okay.
grade?
Have we as a district done a survey with our teachers to see how the teachers feel about this 90-10?
Well, what we've done is a survey of what's best practice and what works educationally. And I don't think
To the
that
teachers?
what's proven to work, research-based proven to work. And that might fundamentally be different than what our teachers have been trained in doing or have done for decades. I do not disagree that that could happen. But looking at our results, we've used that model for decades. And our results, the community has overwhelmingly said, our results are not worth the property taxes we pay. And I would agree that our results have not been worth the property taxes we pay. So we've been using that model. We've recently changed. We've seen better improvement since we've changed than we've ever had before, including this year with these results.
But we're also letting the children retake the test up to 3 times. We're letting those children hand in homework up to 7 days late.
So, okay, let's take them one at a time. What's the downside from letting a child retake a test?
What is the downside?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm not totally against retaking tests as much as I am making it a little bit more standard throughout the district. We have children coming up to teachers saying, the first test, I'm not taking this test, I'll take the retest. There's something wrong with that.
That's a process issue.
Yeah,
It's not
I
a
think
but that's not a policy issue.
But we
So-
need to do something to standardize
Right,
that.
and we have standardized that. There was a document that went to all of our building principals specific to what the standards were for the retake. So again, that's a process issue in which I, as a superintendent, and the building administrators must be held accountable for ensuring that the process is implemented with integrity and fidelity. But that's not a policy issue per se. So there are some teachers out there that practice the policy perfectly. There are other teachers who need more supports concerning that. But we have 1,600 teachers in our district, and all of them are not going to be well-versed specific to the mechanics of 90-10. Further, I'm not naive. I also understand that there is a segment of teachers that have, by their own definition, by their own admission, refuse to engage in the policy simply because they don't believe in it. And there are some who are hoping against hope that the policy will go away, or that even maybe I will go away. I'm thankful that the board has sent a message that clearly that's not the case, at least 4 years beyond my current contract. But you're correct, Member Sikora. There are some areas of concern, but those areas of concern are more geared towards the process, not necessarily the policy. And we need to ensure that we clean up the process, because for those teachers who have engaged in the process appropriately, the gains that their students have made have been grounded in the evidence.
I guess why I fundamentally think that retake should happen is we often say all students don't learn at the same pace. So the realization of that is by saying that we allow retakes. You know, if we don't allow retakes, then on one hand we say all students learn at the same pace, but then, you know, all students don't learn at the same pace. But then if we say, hey, y'all got to learn it here, then we're saying they all learn at the same pace. You know,
Now remember, Rick, I said I wasn't opposed to the retake a test necessarily. I'm more opposed to the 90-10 because I think we have a vicious cycle. If they don't do the homework, they don't understand it. They take a test, they don't pass it.
Right.
Okay.
So, but then don't they?
Well, let me-
But then if
But then they go ahead and they relearn it and they retake the test, which looks similar to the first test.
Okay.
So the children know, I mean, it's not the same test, but it looks similar to that test. Okay, now we're 2 or 3 days down the line, we've started a new chapter, but these kids are still on the old chapter trying to understand it. And we
What-
start a new chapter, and it becomes a real problem.
I guess what I'm not convinced of is that if we made it 85-15 or 80-20, that would necessarily make students do their homework more. Or that it would necessarily, what I know it won't do is I know it won't increase their classroom performance, because it didn't in the
Really?
past. Yeah, and this study proves that, our results prove that. So I'm not sure that it'll make, if I don't want to do my homework, maybe I don't want to do it, maybe I can't do it because I don't know how, maybe I'm at a job, maybe I don't have support at home to do it. Changing the percentage of which that homework is worth will not relieve all those obstacles that keep me from doing my homework.
When this was presented to us a couple of years ago, one of the things about it was that kind of pushed me over the top, and I wasn't necessarily a big fan of the 90-10. I was somewhere else, a different number. But mastery of the material was where we seemed to be getting hung up as a district, and particularly with kids moving forward. Yeah, I'm no fan of homework like anybody else, but sometimes I understand what you're saying, that sometimes homework needs to be done, particularly for those who aren't getting it in the classroom. You might have to do the extra stuff. I don't know how the numbers, as Member Gujas said, or as you said, 90-10, 80-15, or 85-15, 80-20, 75-25, whatever the number is. I noticed in the last couple of years, we have seen our numbers go up dramatically. And at some point, I also rely on your sage knowledge of having been in the classroom for many, many years. So it's kind of one of these, and I think it's good that we're having this conversation just to kind of vet through some of this stuff. So,
I wish
and
we
I
had
know
more
Jim
teachers in
has,
the audience,
I know Jim's got a lot of information, not just the books, but he's also, he does a lot of reading, I know that. But beyond that, Jim, you want to kind of go down the list of questions?
I mean, in the interest of brevity, I have several questions from Member Sikora. I want to also, I appreciate the fact that Member Sikora is bringing this up as an issue of concern, a topic of concern. If I, as a superintendent, am ill-prepared to defend our process and our policies, then it kind of makes me not worthy of the position. And so, but yet, I do appreciate the fact that she has brought question to this. Clearly, we don't want groupthink. I need to be able to justify our policies and our procedures and our processes, and I'm willing to do that. So I don't know in what way you would like me to answer these questions, Member Sikora. I can read your questions to the audience. I can read my answers to the audience, and then if there's questions beyond that, I would be more than willing to answer those as well. I fear that we may be debating this all night. So if anyone has any objections, I can read Member Sikora's questions. I can read my response, and then if there's questions beyond that, I'd be willing to provide responses to them as well. Will that be fine?
That's fine. We don't have to go over the retake. All I'm asking is that some of the principals clarify this to the teachers, because this is not necessarily coming from the teachers as much as it is the principals telling them they have to retake tests no matter what.
Okay, your first question is, children have not established a routine, nor do they know the value that homework plays on their overall learning when they come to the junior high. How do we instill those two things with 90-10? Again, Member Gu just referenced meta-analysis. That's just one meta-analysis. I also have another meta-analysis in which I can reference later in my responses. My response to that question is, as a superintendent charged with the education of 18,000 students, I cannot make assumptions about children's routines and or work habits. This statement would need to be quantified or qualified for me to accurately respond. The simple answer to this question is to fundamentally care about the students in a way that is obvious to them and assign work that is engaging and meaningful. On this topic, there are copious amounts of research that validate those two factors as having a significant impact on achievement. What has been validated through the research is that the two single most important factors to a child's educational success is the teacher followed by the principal. Question number 2, the research that I've found says that 90-10 works best on those children that are in the higher level classes. However, from talking to teachers that teach those subjects, they have seen a huge drop in homework completion. How do you get highly motivated children to do homework if it doesn't affect their grade? If highly motivated children don't do homework, how do you expect the average and below average students to do homework when it doesn't affect their grade? Again, I'd be interested in reading the research you referenced and whether it has been peer-reviewed and statistically validated. Is this a simple analysis of a particular case study, or is this a meta-analysis of many bodies of research that have stood the test of variables and limitations across many settings? Sure.
Thanks.
The research I have referenced concerning standards-based grading, in fact, indicates the exact opposite. Historically, students in the highest level classes are also the students that are the most compliant. This compliance bears out as a result of the percentage attached to the homework that is directly associated to the final grade. When faced with an option of homework only counting for 10% of the grade, these are the very students that would most likely choose not to do the homework because they do not find it meaningful and it does not impact their assessment results. I can reference a student at Bolingbrook High School who, when the second year of my administration, was an honor student who had never saw the other side of a B in his life. Both his sisters attended Romeoville High School when I was the principal there, and they were both valedictorians. When I had an all-school assembly to outline the design for change at Bolingbrook High School, he listened very intently because he was a very intelligent young man. What he heard was that I don't have to do my work and I can still get an A. That's a fundamental problem to me, that a child doesn't have to do work and can still get an A. That indicates that the rigor is not there to meet this child's needs and to challenge him. So what he did, and at Bolingbrook High School, the policy was if you did not maintain a 3.0 in your honors classes, you would then be relegated to standard level classes. So after the first 6 weeks, his grade report reflected all D's and F's. And his parents, who at the time were personal friends of mine, which kind of saved me to some extent, came to the school and were very cordial, but yet had concerns about their child, who had never seen the other side of a B since elementary school, was now failing all of his courses as a result of this new policy and procedure that was in place at Bolingbrook High School. I then had a conversation with this young man indicating that he needed to follow through with all of the work that was required of him. This was counter to what I was telling the kids in terms of how we were going to assess kids based on the 90-10 policy. He listened, he was polite. At 12 weeks, he came back and he still had D's and F's. And at that point in time, I sent an email to all of his teachers indicating that they please indicate to me why this child was failing. And I will read, and I will leave it anonymous, because this is an example, just one example of what happens in our district when we use compliance as part of our grading system. The response that the teacher gave me was, hello, to date, student A has a 73.87%, which is a D+ in this honors course. As it stands now, if he would turn in his missing work for late credit, he can earn an 87.55, which is a B. I stopped the teacher at that point and indicated that without any assessment, if the child complied with just turning in work that was required of him associated with the grade, without any type of formal summative assessment, he could go from a D to a B. I found that problematic. She also indicated he's taking a test today and has another set of homework which is due today as well. We have one remaining chapter left to cover before the final. His highest projected potential grade in this honors course, second semester, could be a very high B. In general, his grade is so low because he refuses to do assigned homework and classwork. He feels he's above it because he understands material and does well on every test. I asked, what do you mean by doing well on every test? She said he gets a 92 or better on every test. If he would have completed the required work, his scores in this high-level course could have been at the very high A level. Also, I'd like him to leave his playing cards at home. These are a distraction and very disruptive. Thank you, teacher. This student was so smart that he did not need to practice the work to get an A. Now, he's an outlier, but it's an example of how the system of grading, which is based on reward and punishment, can negatively impact a child. This discourse was repeated in every one of his honors courses. Yet in every one of his honors courses, every one of his teachers said that on his summative assessments, he was a high A student. So I asked this teacher, I said, what is the purpose of the work you give this child? She said it's to master the content. At that point, I said, if the purpose of the work is to master the content, and he's mastered the content without the work, and he's failing the course as a result, then you need to change the purpose of the work, because it's not to master the content, because he's mastered the content. And the teacher agreed. And so at that point in time, we changed the grades to reflect what this child knew, not what he did, because what he did was not germane to what he knew. And we were willing to take a child who had a 92% on all of his summative assessments and all of his honors courses because he was extremely bright, fail him in all of those courses, and put him in standard level courses as if to say, how dare you be so smart as to master my content without the benefit of my instruction. And if you do that, I will fail you for it. That's just one snapshot of a systems error that's across this country has served to marginalize whole subsets of children and impact the achievement gap to the extent that we cannot close it. At Romeoville High School, with our lowest level learners in math, we had what we call pre-algebra. And at the end of the semester, I looked at the final exam grades of this body of students. 70% of those students showed minimum requirements for proficiency by passing the final exam with a C or better. Yet 70% of those students also received a final grade of a D or an F. When I when I questioned the math team concerning this, the answer became they did not do the work. Therefore, it was a compliance issue that precluded these kids from moving on to the next level, not a mastery issue. And so my question became, are we saying that until these students comply with what we expect them to do, it really doesn't matter what they know? And that if they know it, but they didn't know it based on our system of delivery, we will continue to fail them until they comply, despite the fact that they know the material. Fortunately for me, the department chair at that time agreed, and we moved those kids, even though they had a failing grade on the report card, because they proved minimum requirements for proficiency based on an exam that was designed to measure what we expected them to know for an 18-week period. That's just two examples in our district that would indicate that our grading system as a whole and nationally is not designed to determine content mastery.
Dr. Mitchum, so you said that example, it made me think of a different example. And can you kind of explain this to me? When Member Sikora mentioned practice, and that homework is practice. So immediately I thought of like sports, football. And practice isn't graded at all. Practice is for the game. You don't get a grade on having a bad practice doesn't mean you lose the game. Having a bad practice sometimes teaches you a lot about what's going to happen at the game. So if you have a student who struggles, and my issue isn't with giving homework, my issue is with how much homework counts. If you have a student that's struggling on their homework, they're doing their homework, they're struggling on their homework, getting a low grade for their homework, and we're at a higher percentage than 10%. I don't know, I think before we had this rule, it was up to the individual teacher what percentage that counted for. If we're at, say, 50% of their grade is on practice or homework, or 40% of their grades on homework, or bring in a box of Kleenex, which many of us parents have experienced to get for their grade. What good does it do if in the practice I fail the practice, but through that process of failing the practice and not doing well in the practice, I mastered the content? On the test, I prove mastery. I get an A on the test. But in the homework, I fail the homework, so now my grade's significantly lower because I failed the homework, but at the end of the semester, the end of the grading period, I know what you wanted me to know. And in part because I did fail the homework. So
I'm not asking for that. Mr. Gugis, what percentage of our children do you think cannot do any homework at all and still pass with a C or above?
That's not what I just said. The example I was given was a kid doing the homework, but turning in the homework, but failing it, not doing well on the homework. Mm-hmm. But by the end of the time period, they turn in their math problems and they missed 10 out of 20. And then the next day they turn it in and they missed 7 out of 20. And so when they get to the test, they've got this figured out, and they get an A on the test, but because their homework grade averages to a 60, they've proven that they know 90+% of the material, but their homework grade pulls them down, even though they may know the material better than a student who got all hundreds on the homework but when they had to sit and prove that they knew the information, could not prove it at the level that student could do it. My issue is not with homework at all. My issue is really with how much does homework count if it's practice. Practice was the word you used.
Correct, and I'm not asking that it go high.
I think at the core of this issue is how do we, again, if the message is that this superintendent has deemed homework unimportant, that's the wrong message, because homework is very important. But how do you reconcile now in a standards-based system, and we all know that the paradigm shift has changed significantly, and we now live in a standards-based system. And for we as instructional leaders not to have appropriate data that will accurately reflect to the degree our kids have learned the content, we cannot drive the direction of this district. And when I look at the outcomes of our students, I need to know that the grade that is reflected on the report is an accurate reflection of the percentage of work that that child knows. And under the previous grading system, that simply was not the case. And we were allowed to do that. But now with Para, with Danielson, with Common Core, with NCLB, we are mandated to live in a standards-based world. So how do we reconcile using our information in a standards-based world that would accurately reflect to the degree kids have absorbed the content, while at the same time attaching a percentage of the grade that is based on something other than content mastery? That becomes a difficult formula to resolve without ensuring that, for the most part, what that grade reflects is content mastery, or to the degree students have mastered that content. Anything other than that will provide us with data that cannot be interpreted, and as a result, we will not be able to set goals for this district that are appropriate, that will ensure that we meet the needs of all of our learners to the degree that they are prepared for college at the conclusion of their compensatory education, 12th grade.
I just have one question in regards to the 90-10 and all the summative results. How do we catch, or how do we help those students that are getting it and understanding it, but just are not good test takers?
Again, the percentage of students that may fall in that category, statistically speaking, is about 2 to 3%. My answer to that question, first of all, let me outline exactly how the process should work. If we embed formative assessment into our daily curriculum delivery system, then we should in real time know to the degree that students have met the requirements for proficiency based on a target that has been identified daily. We should not be moving on until such time that we get at least 80% of our students to be able to meet that target on a daily basis. Now that brings us back to the fundamental foundation of the pillars, which is beliefs. We have to establish a belief system in this district that indicates that we believe that all of our children, save the 3% that are cognitively delayed to the extent that they can't learn at a normal rate, can meet minimum requirements for proficiency. Now, one of the things that I think are confusing to people is that I don't expect all of our students to be A students. I have 4. 2 I do expect to be A students. 2 I expect to meet minimum requirements for proficiency at a minimum. So there are students who master the content to the degree that they can earn an A, and there are others who meet minimum requirements for proficiency, which is a C. What we need to ensure is that the rigor in our curriculum is such that that C, a student in a standards-based grade reporting system, by having a C on that report card, indicates that they are at least minimally prepared to meet the rigor of college. So, in our system, if we, A, have a rigorous enough curriculum that indicates that all of our students are going to be met with a college-ready curriculum, 1. B, that we have a formative assessment system in place that ensures that we are able to accurately assess to the degree the students have learned that which we have identified as critically important to their college success is in place. C, we are formatively assessing those kids in real time and making adjustments to our delivery system to ensure that we meet the needs of all of those kids, given that we believe we can, which is something that I believe the jury is still out on. So that at the time we summatively assess our kids, it should not be a guessing game. We should know through our formative assessment system exactly which kids are prepared for the test and to the degree they're prepared for the test, and that should bear out in our outcomes. And if they don't, then we need to look at our process again. And again, it's a fundamental shift from looking at our process as opposed to looking at what we expect of our children. So we have to go into this with the belief that we expect high academic outcomes from all of our kids, and we put a system in place to assure that that happens. And what the research has indicated in the 90-90-90 schools, 90% minority, 90% poverty, 90% of their kids achieving minimum requirements for proficiency. Those districts are far more at risk than ours, yet achieving far greater results than ours. It has happened in Brazosport, Texas. It has happened in Pinellas County, Florida. It has happened in the Harlem Project, where these kids are significantly underfunded, have significant challenges, factors beyond our capacity to control, yet are embedded in a system that meets all of their needs. I have researched this. I've been saying 10 years now for about 10 years, so it's been about 20 years that I've traversed this country looking at systems that are unique in terms of the outcomes of their children, and have used all of those things in devising a vision for Valley View to ensure that we meet the needs of all of our kids. But if it works appropriately, if it works accurately, then teachers will not be forced to have to give copious amounts of retakes. It's the best teachers in our districts rarely give retakes because they're able to accurately formatively assess their kids, they're able to accurately intervene in real time, and they're able to accurately determine to the degree kids have mastered that content based on the summative assessment. And when they do that correctly, then the percentage of kids that have to retake tests is very small. In fact, it should be less than 20% of your children.
Dr. Mitchum, a couple of points of clarification. Member Sikora, I would start with saying 4 years ago, I was in your same position, in the sense that I was like, this is so fundamentally different than, well, you're telling me homework should only be worth. It was just prior to it being district policy. I was having a conversation with Dr. Mitchum when he was the principal at Bolingbrook High School. I can remember it like it was yesterday, sitting in his office and him telling me about 90-10 and retakes. And it was so fundamentally different than anything I'd ever done before. And he brought out the same stack of books. And I took the books and I read the books, and I asked him questions after questions about each book that I read. And then I asked him to give me books that disagreed with his thought process. But in the end, what I came to see was that what we were doing currently was not working. One issue, though, that I would agree with the problem that we're having is that, and I don't know completely where the disconnect is. I don't know if the disconnect is unwillingness. I don't know if the disconnect is training. I don't know if the disconnect is our day isn't set up properly. The execution of 90-10 has not been done as well as it needs to be done. And that may be from a lack of training, a lack of understanding, a lack of time. I'm not exactly sure why that execution hasn't happened well. There are many examples where parents will email me, contact me, and say, hey, this is the problem I have with 90-10, and come to find out that process, whether it's the student, the teacher, the school, is not done correctly.
What process are you talking about?
The process of how 90-10 works in terms of, I put 90-10 and retakes together. I don't separate them. So how the process of retakes takes place, what you have to do to take a retake, what that should look like, what the preparation should look like. It should not just be, I want to take the test the first time, so I show up tomorrow and I get a retake. You know, what that process should look, what the formative assessment process that Dr. Mitchum is referring to should look like. The other piece, though, that I began to do some research about was intrinsic and extrinsic motivation of kids. And this idea that we're going to extrinsically motivate them by making homework a higher percentage of their grade has just not proven to work. You know, that you're going to say, oh, it's 20% of your grade. It's not. It's an extrinsic motivator for them. It may work short term, much like PBIS. It may work short term, but over the long term, these extrinsic motivators are proven not only to not work, they actually corrupt our students' value system. Making someone do something for a reason that they don't truly value and understand is not an extrinsic motivator, is not valuable. It is my fundamental issue with PBIS. It works for the short term. You know, if you do this, you get a ticket and you get to go get a sucker. But one day the sucker's not good enough. You know, and we are taking kids from saying you should do what's right to you should do it for the sucker. And this works in the same thing. You should do it for the grade. And that extrinsic motivator.
Why don't you tell the children that? Because the children aren't understanding it. That what the children are looking at, they're saying 10% really does not affect my grade, so therefore I'm not going to do the homework. All I ask is, why don't we do a survey of our teachers and see how they feel about this 90-10, an anonymous survey where they're not afraid to take it. But you're saying that the teacher. Okay, go ahead.
Let me respond to that. You know, I have an article that says in praise of top-down leadership, and it doesn't really, the article isn't praising top-down leadership. But what it's saying is that, what do you do when you have irrefutable evidence that indicates a particular system, a particular way of doing things is not working? And there is another way to do things that has been validated to work. For example, through the visible learning meta-analysis of 105,282 students with a typical barometer of a 0.2, on a scale of a negative 0.2 to a plus 1.2, the influence of homework is medium to low. The grade school influence is 0. The middle school influence is marginal. And the high school influence is low. I don't think that's an issue of homework. I think it's an issue of the quality and the type of homework that we give. And we haven't really examined that. But what do you do when you have irrefutable evidence that indicates that the direction you should go in is the right direction against a culture of resistance? As a building leader, do you succumb to the culture of resistance knowing that it's going to take you down the wrong path? Or do you stand up to the culture of resistance and implement that which has been validated to work in the face of resistance? So yes, we could survey our staff, and I'm sure that our staff would indicate, many of them would say that they are in disagreement with 90-10. My response to that would be, the evidence indicates that the manner in which we've conducted our business has not met the needs of all of our children. There is decades and decades of evidence that indicates that we have an achievement gap that we have been unable to impact despite over $3 trillion infused into our American education system. It is not a question of money, it is a question of practice. And so, although I am very interested in the opinions of our teachers, if as a superintendent I allow the opinions of our teachers to drive our direction, particularly when that opinion is not grounded in the evidence, and I have the evidence that indicates that the direction we're going in is the right direction for our students, my response would be, what would you expect me to do with that survey data, given that there may be teachers who indicate they don't particularly care for the direction we're going in? Should I stop and go back to a system of business that has been validated not to work since 1954? Or do we attempt to change the heart and minds of the educators that we have in our system who are resistant because it serves the best interests of our children? So I would defer to taking my appropriate place as a superintendent of this district and resisting the urge to succumb to the pressures of resistance and put systems in place that for really about 15 years I've been researching and have validated to work, and have, in the 2 short years that we've been in these positions, shown to have improved the educational outcomes of our students. Some marginally, some pretty dramatically, all-day kindergarten. But in 2 years, against decades of doing this a different way, we have shown that we're able to turn that corner. And if we can, as administrators, support our teachers in a way that promotes buy-in, I am telling you, as sure as I'm sitting here, that this district will be a turnaround district, that we will meet all the needs of all of our children, and we will be high performing. It is a matter of trust to some degree as well, for me to know what I'm doing and facilitate this change.
Okay. All I ask is that we find some way to get the kids to do it.
I concur.
I think it's a
I
good
concur.
service that
If I may
they-
share a comment, I've got 2 little ones in the school district, and the 90-10 rule, I get it, I understand it. In theory, I agree with it, right? Because there's some value in it, and I do understand that there's also value in homework. And I don't know if Beverly Scoff got the memo, because we got a lot of homework. And you know what? There was a little celebration once in a while when we didn't get homework. But you know what? It was good for the kids. It was good for us. We did the poems, we did the math, we did all the homework. It was great. With that said, I do find value in homework. I just think that, to Mr. Guja's point, there shouldn't be a particular value for scoring homework to your overall assessment of mastery. I do find there was value. There is absolute value in homework, by all means. I just think it's identifying and saying, well, if you don't do the homework, you're going to fail. Well, I would have to disagree, because if my son or my daughter can master the course without doing homework, then they should pass. With that said, I do agree that the homework does bring some value, but what level or how many points it should count towards their grade or towards passing is probably, it's philosophical ideas about how you want to manage that. But I think the data states clearly that we are moving in the right direction, and that we've seen some significant improvement based on the current process. But I don't think the homework has ended, right? I mean, I've seen the homework. I see the homework booklets, files. We get the folders. We do the homeworks. It's there. My kids got homework for summer, and they're not going to the program.
That memo that you said Scoff never got was never sent. So again, I think that's a misperception, that because we have attached a smaller percentage to homework, that the indication is don't have kids do it. In fact, if we implement our homework appropriately, it is of critical importance for students to do it. But one of the key faults or fallacies in our homework is that many times we send kids home with homework that they don't know how to do. Because, again, this is a systems error. We teach it. We don't formatively assess it. We expect that because we taught it, you know it. And if you don't know it, there's something wrong with you as a child, not something wrong with my delivery system. And so if you didn't do the homework, it's your fault, as opposed to possibly it could be that they did not understand the homework because of the system in which we delivered it. So you can't send kids home to do stuff that they don't know how to do and then expect them to do it. One of the things that was a real paradigm shift at Bolingbrook High School is that I indicated that homework is a privilege, that kids should be privileged to be able to go home and do homework, because that indicates to the teacher and to the student that I have mastered this material enough to be able to go home and practice it on my own, to hone that which I have learned and now know. But if we don't ensure that before we send kids home with work to do, that they know how to do it, then it becomes a vicious cycle of them coming back without the homework, being labeled as being lazy or cognitively delayed, or any of the other multitude of things we say about kids, placing them in special education, placing them in low-level courses, when in fact it may be just an issue of delivery. Because I will tell you, kids will be far more motivated to do work that they're sure they know how to do than they will to go home and be frustrated because there's an expectation that we taught it, therefore you should know it. And if you don't know it and you express it, you don't know it, that the problem lies with you, not with the teacher. And finally, Member Felice, concerning the testing, poor test takers, you know, I've used an analogy in my interviews with teachers who have indicated that kids have poor test taking skills, and I quiz them on the spot. Just give them 10 random questions, of which they get 100% correct. And I said, did I prep you for the test? No. Did you study for the test? No. Were you anxious as a result of the questions that I asked you to answer? No. Why? The simple answer, 100% of the time, was because I knew it, because I knew the answers. When students intrinsically believe that they know the answers to the questions we're going to ask, or they know the material that's going to be presented to them, the anxiety diminishes significantly. The reason students are anxious about tests are because they're not sure that they know the material. That's our responsibility to make sure that they know it. Why, as a system, not just Valley View, do we, at the high school level in particular, where we give exams, final exams, do we deliver instruction for 16 and a half weeks, and a week to a week and a half before final exams, we review, and we cram as much material as we possibly can in those kids' heads in a short amount of time to ensure that they're prepared to pass that test and move on with this false notion that they know it. If we were confident that after 17 weeks of instruction, our kids had met at a minimum requirements for proficiency, there would be no reason to review. That procedure in and of itself indicates that we as educators don't believe that what we taught those kids for 17 weeks, they've internalized, that they've mastered or met minimum requirements for proficiency. If we did, there would be no reason to spend a week reviewing. So we're even saying that we know that all the stuff we tried to cram in your head, you don't know it. So let us stick it back in your head in a very short amount of time so that your short-term memory can retain it, then regurgitate on a piece of paper and then move on. Myself is a perfect example. In high school, I got A's and B's. If you put a chemistry test in front of me now, I'm going to flunk it. If you put a geometry test in front of me right now, I'm going to fail it. If you put an algebra test in front of me right now, I'm going to fail it. But at the time that I was required to know the material and regurgitate it on the test, I was pretty good at that. But once that was done, I was like, whew, I don't got to remember that no more. I can just move on to the next thing. And that's a problem in our system. Our curriculum is a mile wide and an inch deep, when it should be a mile deep and an inch wide. And those things are all being addressed through the Common Core. Those things are all being addressed through our increased rigor in our curriculum. Those things are all being addressed in a way that in the future we won't be confronted with these issues that we're confronting with now. But to change course after only 2 years of implementation, in my opinion, is a mistake.
You know, Member Score, I think you pointed to like more of a root issue. And it sounded like the root issue you were saying was, you know, if kids practice, you mentioned in math, you mentioned middle school, if they practice, they're going to master this material better. Am I getting that right?
I think anything that you do, if you practice, you do better.
Okay.
The key is you have to know what you're practicing.
Right. And
I have to stick up for teachers. I don't think there's any teacher out there that would give homework knowingly that they did not teach. But that's my own opinion.
But if they informatively, maybe they don't know it knowingly.
And I would
probably agree knowingly.
I would agree with that. But teaching it and students knowing it are two different things.
But my issue on that is, you know, and I may be in disagreement with you and Dr. Mitchum on the overall value of homework. I value it less. I think a lot of research points to that. But I'll give it, okay, homework has value. and you want kids to do the homework. But the question becomes, how do we get the kids to do the homework?
Exactly.
Okay. I do not think that assigning a grade to it is the way of which to do it. I think we need to find something more intrinsic.
Okay,
to
then
make
find
them-
that for us,
to make
because it's
them-
not working now.
To make them more valuable, to make it more valuable. And increasing the percentage is not proven to work. To make it, because they did it, or they didn't do it, or they half did it, or however it got done, it did not at the end of the day improve their outcomes. Because we wouldn't be doing better than we are now.
You know,
The way in which to ensure that students do their homework is to ensure that the homework is valuable.
Right.
It's the analogy that when I was a child, if my mom said, if you don't clean your room, you can't eat your beets. And I hate beets, so I'm just not going to clean my room.
Right.
But if my mom said, if you don't clean your room, you're not going to get your allowance, then I'm going to clean my room because my allowance was of value to me. Now, I get that that's an extrinsic motivator, and that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I am trying to make is that when homework is driven by value, when students take home a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning with their homework, and it's attached to the standard, then students will do that. And that's much more of an intrinsic motivator than an extrinsic motivator, because it does go back to what you said. We've been doing it that way since the inception of our public school system, and it has worked for a few, but it has not worked for the vast majority of our students. And the vast majority of our students look very differently now than they did in 1950. And so now, a district such as ours that is very, very
You're really aging
heterogeneous.
me. I didn't teach in 1950.
I'm just citing the research. I wasn't born in 1950.
Oh, thanks.
But we are very
was
different.
close.
No, I wasn't even close.
55 or something?
No, I was somewhere
Can we bring this
beyond that.
to a close?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
What I would like to do if the
That's interesting.
Okay, but I do have
I think this is
further-
what. Wait, hold
if
on.
there's
I think
somebody
this is one of the
wants
most
to-
valuable conversations the school board's ever had. I thank Member Sequoia for bringing it up. And if we had to sit here 3 hours, that's what I signed up for. So the idea that we bring to close the most valuable discussion that we've probably had intellectually about something that affects our school district is shocking to me. But
I think
thank you, Member
Well,
Sequoia.
excuse me, I'm gonna take my time this time, okay? President Quigley, Vice President Gugis, Member Sikora, Dr. Mitchell. I respect each and every one of you, and I'm not just saying bringing it to a close on this subject matter, is that I heard the value of the both of them, and the thing that I heard listening distinctly, what you guys were saying is that to get the students to do the homework should be the conversation. The conversation that I've heard here tonight is to put the percentage, or not to put the percentage, or where to put the percentage. So I'm willing to sit here until whenever, if that's where the conversation is going to go, is that how are we going to get the children to do the homework, then let's continue the conversation.
I think what we should do is, on a day, not during the day, either in an evening or on a weekend, have a workshop to continue this conversation. There might be some more people who want to throw some input into it. We can pick a date in the not too distant future, sometime this summer, and continue this conversation. I mean, if
We have had many, many community outreach
I understand.
specifically to this topic, but I am more than willing to take this show on the road as many times as we need to attempt to get that point across.
Is that, everybody okay with that?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for your candor and your opinions and your research and what have you on that issue. Since we're moving down the agenda, are there any questions from the public on actions we have taken this evening?
My name is Amy Spatz. I have a child at AVM. I'm fine with 90-10. My kid knows he has to do his work. Practice makes perfect. I do have a problem with retakes because of the policy not being implemented. Just want to know how we would move forward, making sure that those policies are implemented. Also, was just wondering if the questions that Member Sikora posed to Dr. Mitchum, would those be able to be put online for the community members to see might help, because people might have the same types of questions that members of CORE also had.
Absolutely. We can ensure that the questions and the responses are posted. And in terms of the first part of your question, again, that is the responsibility of our administration to ensure that the procedures associated with the 90-10 policy are implemented with integrity and fidelity. And it's my responsibility to make sure that the principals understand that and assistant principals understand that, and it's their responsibility to ensure that the implementation, again, is with integrity and fidelity. And so we understand that there are issues in terms of our delivery. But just as with any change process, you know, you're going to stub your toe, you're going to fall down, and you're going to have to get back up and try again until you get it right. In the same way that we expect kids to try again when they don't prove proficiency on information that we have deemed critical to their success.
Ms. Spence, I think your point is right on target. I think that the execution has not always been there. And as I said earlier, I'm not really sure where that fall down is. You know, I'm not sure if that fall down is in, have we trained people on how to do this? Is our day set up correctly to do this? I mean, we didn't really change fundamentally our structure of our school day or what it looks like when we did this. You know, Member Sequoia has mentioned, where's the time come from before in previous conversations I've had with her. So I'm not sure, but I know that he's responsible to figure that out. And I'm impatient, as you are on that, to get that done. But I think that's a very fair and valid point on the execution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any announcements by the board this evening?
I have one announcement. Make sure, I want to remind everybody that H2O will be having their golf outing this Wednesday. We want to invite everybody out there, all the community, and we also have a dinner and auction, and so please come out. It will be at the Bolingbrook Golf Club. Starts 10 o'clock in the morning, and it will be going through,
I think the shotgun starts at noon.
Noon.
And the dinner's to follow, and I think social hour starts at 6 that night.
Excellent. So want to make sure that everybody joins us out there. Thank you.
Also, the Valley View Educational Enrichment Foundation has their golf outing July 31st. That information is on the Valley View website.
I want to thank Representative Manley for her visit today. I also want to thank sincerely Member Sikora for really sparking probably the best conversation I've seen the school board have, and I think that we need to continue to have those conversations with a diversity of opinions and thoughts on what's best for the students in our district. So thank you, Member Sikora.
A couple of points. First, I'd like to let everybody know that the American Legion Auxiliary in Romeoville Unit 52 is currently doing their annual school bag project that provides school supplies for children of veterans and active duty military. They're looking for donations, including crayons, scissors, spiral notebooks, loose leaf paper, disinfectant wipes, the list goes on and on. If you have anything or would be interested in trying to donate something, you can contact the person that's running that. Her name is Petra Burgess. You can call her at 815-302-4341 or send me an email and I'll make sure that that gets to the correct person, but that helps our veterans. Also, I'll defer to Vice President Gugis in regards to the SAC meat raffle that's coming up. I'm sure you've got maybe some more information, more than I would. And finally, the last thing for me, it's a little over a month away, but the Bolingbrook Park District's Summer Blast is set for August 24th. And if you're willing to donate $1 or $2, you might see myself or a few other people in a dunk tank. So it helps the Park District, and it particularly helps the programs that by and far are the best in the area, and I don't care who you want to compare them to. So that's what I got.
To Member Felice's point, the Hampton Park Social Athletic Club is a group of Romeoville and Bolingbrook men that raise about $50,000 that they donate to students for both athletic and social adventures, everything from sponsoring sports teams to exchange visits overseas. They are having their summer meat raffle on July the 27th at the Bolingbrook Golf Course starting at noon. So
what day is that?
July the 27th.
27th of July. For those of you who have never been to a meat raffle, it's not just meat. They raffle off a lot of other things, but typically each raffle, within the raffle, has 10 to 13, maybe 15 prizes. Tickets are $5 for $1 per raffle. This is pretty good. But I will, on personal experience, if you win the ham, think about what you're going to do with the 25-pound ham, because it's a lot of ham, and you probably don't want to go home and cook it in the middle of July, so you got to have a big freezer. It's a great time. It's the first time they've held it at the Bolingbrook Golf Club. It's held variously throughout the community over the years, but we'll be in the tent at the Bolingbrook Golf Club. There'll be food and beverages, and it's a lot of fun, and there's some great people who put it on. I sponsor some parts of the raffle, along with some other people. You can win gift certificates, bicycles, TVs, 25-pound hams, 25-pound turkeys. My son won 20 pounds of hamburger, and in a roll about this big. So, and there's another question: what do you do with 20 pounds of hamburger in a roll this big? I can tell you, you cut it up and you put it in a bag, and you find spots for it in the freezer. Anyway, it's a great time, and thank the Hampton Park SAC guys for all the donations they make to the community sports programs and other programs in the district, in the area. They're a bunch of hardworking guys, and they certainly appreciate all the support they can get from the community. Any other announcements by the board? Announcements by the administration? Registration's coming up, correct?
Yes, but I don't have the details. So we have no announcements, unless you'd like
It's
me
on
to
the
have
website.
someone.
I just
It's on the
saw it
website.
today.
Yeah, it is on the website. Any announcements by the public? Rachel's mom? Come on. Come on.
Kathy, I'm sure you have some opinions on 9010.
Yes.
I think if we have a public forum, yeah, I mean, putting the students in and ask, like I said, if we do a workshop or something along those lines, I wouldn't see why anybody would be excluded from throwing in their 2 cents worth.
Amy, what I think you're asking is, can we have a forum specifically designed to address students, and we can do that? Okay.
Are you volunteering your student?
Your student and I had a forum for about an hour and a half already, if you recall.
Any other business? Seeing none?
I just have one more comment. I
Oh.
just wanted to thank Superintendent Mitchum for recommitting himself for another 4 years to our community and our school district. It's, you know, when we see and hear the financial piece of our district and some of the challenges that we have with 9010, and I'm fully have all the confidence that we're going to get through it, and that we're going to be successful and turn our district around. So I just want to thank you, Superintendent, for recommitting and helping us get back on track.
Thank you for your vote of confidence.
Any other announcements? Rachel, is your husband here? She
Her
recently
new
got
husband.
married.
Oh, that's right. She just got married. So it's
Sorry, sorry about that. They're recently married. Your husband doesn't want to say a few words on behalf of you? Okay, well, there you go. Thank you all for coming this evening. Got a couple, 3 or 4 weeks, so summer left, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it is. Enjoy, stay out of the heat if you can, and if you're out in heat, hope you stay cool. Motion to adjourn will be in order. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Have a great